My name is Bridget, and I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer when I was 30 years old, and I've been cancer-free for 12 and a half years. Having breast cancer feels like you are on a roller coaster ride, is how I would describe it. It's the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. You never know what's around the next turn. Every day brings something different. Even during, after all of that, I would describe it as a emotional and physical roller coaster. You never forget when you find out. Actually, my son was a baby and he had strep throat, and I had just taken him to the doctor, and I came home that day, and I couldn't swallow, and I'm a teacher and I never got sick, but I'm like, I wonder if I have strep throat. So I ran up to just the take care clinic thing, and they swabbed, and I had strep throat. We were supposed to go to a wedding that night, and so I told my husband I better not go since I just got put on medicine. And so he left for the wedding. I stayed home and got in the shower, and I just was feeling like my throat felt really swollen, and so I was feeling it. And at the time I was a size A on a good day. And so I came down from my neck, and like right up here, I could feel a lump, and I was like, that's weird. And my lymph nodes were all swollen, but I just thought it was because I had strep throat. So I called my husband and I said, hey, there's a lump in the top of my breast. And he was like, I'm sure it's fine, but we'll call the doctor Monday morning. And I honestly didn't really think anything of it. He was more the one who, I think it bothered him more than it bothered me. So I found it on a Saturday. So that Thursday I went, and I had a toddler and a baby, dropped him off at my sister-in-law's house, and just went in by myself. My husband's like, should I go with you? I'm like, no, nothing's, like 100%. I would have paid $1 million to say nothing was wrong with me. I had just walked 3 miles pushing a double stroller that morning that I found out I had cancer to my mom's, and I felt fine. I remember calling, this is gonna make me tear up, calling my sister-in-law, and I'm like, I just got blindsided. I said, Jen, who was watching my kids, I said, I think something might be wrong. Like, they keep bringing doctors in, and it took a really long time. I just immediately was like crying and kind of yelling at them, like, just tell me, do I have cancer? And then they told me they were 99% sure that I did, but they had to do a biopsy. And so I think I fell on the floor of the office. Because it was the furthest thing in the world from my mind. They did a biopsy, and they found out pretty quickly that it was not only cancer, but very aggressive cancer. And I was back the next day for MRIs and CT scans to see how far it had spread, how bad it was. And they originally were talking about different options, like if you were gonna have a mastectomy or chemo, and after they did the test, they're like, you're starting chemo, or you won't be here. And so I started chemo the following week on my 31st birthday. I got a port put in and started chemo. My aunt, I'll never forget, because I kept deciding, should I do both of them? Should I just do a lumpectomy? And my aunt said, however, one thing I do to make hard decisions is I look at worst case scenario with each choice, and which could you live with the most. And for me, the worst case scenario was the cancer coming back. That was my greatest fear. So had I not done a mastectomy, it could come back. It would be very treatable. But that's like, once she said that to me, I made the decision to have it. And I was very active during my whole things, because I had 2 little guys who didn't care that they didn't know their mom was sick. And my mom had told me right the first week after I got diagnosed, I literally just didn't leave the house. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to tell anybody, and I just cried. And my mom said, Bridget, however you handle this is how your kids are going to handle it. And that's all I needed to hear to kind of turn my mind around, like into more, I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to be more positive. And that was kind of the turning point. So I started getting dressed every day, washing my hair when I had it, and before I lost it, and taking my kids to preschool, going to do their things, and which was a good thing, because it kind of kept me going. I kept living my life rather than just waiting to find out if I was going to stay alive. I feel like the things that genuinely most helped were the people who just did. They saw a need and filled the need instead of calling and asking. And like, I remember one day our neighbor, he didn't even like to cut his own grass. And my husband and I were just watching something up in our room, and we hear the lawnmower, and he's like, what is that? And we look out, and he's like, I think that's the thing that impacted him the most out of all my treatment was Eric cutting the grass, because we all knew Eric hated to cut his own grass, and he's out there cutting ours. But he didn't ask. He didn't say, can I do it? He just did it. So things like that I found the most helpful, that were just done, like filled before I knew I even needed them, I would say. The breast cancer diagnosis completely changed my life in so many ways, but one of the strongest, greatest ways is my faith, because before that I was raised in the church. I went to church. I would have always said I had a strong faith, but I also very much felt like I was the one in control of my life before that. I always felt like, not that it was about me, but I could control, what happened, because most things in your life you can control. You can control things, and the cancer was the first thing that was completely out of my control, and it was the first time that I truly had, even though we should trust God in all that we do, it was the first time that I had no control, I had no say in what was going to happen or how this was going to end. And it does change how you look at things and how you live your life. And not that I don't feel like I was a terrible person before, but I really learned to not take things for granted, to not worry, and have hope and live your life. Don't live in fear while you're going through it. Don't let it control you. It's hard. It's really hard, but I think that some of my best advice is how you handle it is kind of how everyone in your circle is going to handle it. And I had to fake it a lot of times to act like I was happy and act like it was okay. But I think that not all the time. I would cry. I cried in the shower a lot because I didn't want my kids to see me. And some people argue, well, you need to be honest and upfront. And they're babies. By the time I was finished, my older one remembers it. And I think it's okay to just keep trying to live your life, because I think it makes it better. It's like you forget a little bit at a time when you're doing something fun or with people. You forget for seconds maybe, but you forget that you have cancer, and I think that that's really important.